art and anthropology, sociology. And so I use my tattoos all the time, not my personal ones, mind you. These are someone else. I'm chicken. I don't do needles. But there's the artistic level, there's the psychological level, there's the commercial business side to tattoos. I will stop people and ask them about their tattoos. So you can use those as the starting point for an assignment. And my students love these because they typically go, whoa! I particularly like the English foxhound hunt on this gentleman. Notice where the fox has gone. In the hole. Yeah, oops. So once again, welcome. And basically, seeing you all today here and everyone who's online with CC Confer Live, your presence proves the point that if we make our presentation sound interesting, people will come. The same is true for our students. If we give them assignments that sound interesting, we're going to engage them. They're going to go, whoa, what's that? Is she nuts? Or in case it's a he who's doing it, is he nuts? And that's a good reaction because we've caught them off guard and they're going to be interested in doing the work. That's from their perspective. From our perspective, the more we get them interested, the better the work is that they'll create for us, and the more interesting their papers are going to be for us to grade. You know, there's just so many papers on Lady Chatterley's lover that we can all be reading, and then we go to sleep. But if we give interesting assignments, we'll get interesting work back, and that makes our life much more pleasurable. So we grew up with the adage that it's better to give than to receive. So if we give assignments that help students to develop their critical thinking skills, that minimize the chances of plagiarism, that seems to be a big thing for online learning. Everyone is worried about authenticity and plagiarism in online. I got news for everyone. The same problem exists in face-to-face classes. But it's online that always seems to hear about it. And if we give students assignments that let them apply the concepts that we've introduced, we're going to create assignments that they think are fun, that they won't even realize they're doing work, and they're going to discover how much they've learned, and at the same time, we're going to have wonderful things to read. So, some background information. I approach my assignments from an interdisciplinary perspective, and that's really a reflection of my education and my interests. My BA is in European history with a focus on British history and Asian studies with a focus on Japan. And being a history major, you always have to take courses outside your area. So I had to take American history, which I know I'm committing sacrilege. I really hated. I found it so boring because I'm a romantic and American history didn't sound romantic. So I took colonial American history, but decided to write all my papers from the point of view of being the colonist who was revolting against Britain. And writing how the British would feel about it. That way I could get my British side in without being so painful for the American side. By the time I was working on my Japanese studies major, I had, for the lack of a better word, created a bit of notoriety in the history department for writing very screwball papers, always from the wrong side. So I wrote a big paper on how the U.S. provoked Japan into bombing Pearl Harbor, which made the round of the entire history department, and everybody wanted a piece of me. Oh my God. I got an A on the paper. All of them were just flabbergasted by the paper. They all found in their different areas of discipline something to comment about, but it worked for me. And so I liked my students to have that strange perspective. When I graduated college, I had to decide if I was going to France to cooking school or to UCLA to get a PhD in Roman archaeology. I decided to go to UCLA. I am the original Julie of Julia and Julie. It should have been Julia and Monica. I learned to cook from Julia Child. So I was going to go to Cordon Bleu. So I didn't. I went and got a degree in archaeology, but my cooking is still real important, and you'll see how this works with this. So I got a master's in Southwest U.S. archaeology and a PhD in classical Roman archaeology. Nothing like being interdisciplinary and spread across the board. For both my master's and my PhD, I developed biochemical techniques for archaeological problems. So I had a Fulbright appointment to the University of Rome School of Medicine. And that's really where I could combine my cooking with my science, with my archaeology, and I met a physician, Paolo Fasella, who, while a medical doctor, was fascinated by art history and was interested in art restoration. And he was creating enzymes to clean paintings. So I'd watch him with his rabbits creating these enzymes, and he'd paint a square on the canvas, and we'd watch the little critters eat 500 years of gunk off the painting. No chemicals, just these little organic critters. And he said, oh, stop working on your amino acids. You should be looking for other things, and use my rabbits. So I whipped out my 2nd century Roman cookbook and started to cook up all these ancient dishes, because my big issue was, what was the function of these pots? Historically, people did typologies. I wanted to know what they were really used for, so I had to extract the organic elements that had become embedded in the ceramic fibers of these vessels. And I'm cooking away, and he says, now you make your meal, and we're going to create antibodies and enzymes and rabbits, and we're going to try this. This is a disaster. And I said, I'm not hurting a rabbit. There's just no way. So he said, well, forget that and do your work at Hospital San Gallicano instead. Go and look for lipids. And I said, okay, I'll move and go to that hospital and work. I walked into the lab. I saw all this great equipment. The lab assistants are eating and running their lab tests. I'm thinking, wow, this is really relaxed. And then I said, and by the way, what does this hospital specialize in? Venereal diseases and skin diseases. I was horrified. Within 2 weeks, I was eating and running my experiments at the same time. But cooking was always there. I teach art history. I teach anthropology and sociology. And those are what I'm credentialed in. Right now I'm teaching art appreciation, cultural anthro, and nonverbal, both online and face-to-face. So that's who I am. So now tell me what you see. Some of you are going to see an old hag, and some of you are going to see a young woman. I'm just looking to see if I have, maybe I can use the pointer for this. Yeah. So that here you have the hair, you have hair. This could be the young ladies with the feather. She's looking off to the side. There's her eyelash and her nose, her ear, and she's got a scarf on. Or this is the old hag's hair, one eye, another eye, her nose, which was the chin of the young lady, and the old hag's mouth, now, that was the necklace for the young girl. Do you see both of them? Okay, but now you do. The thing is, some of you will see the young girl first, and some of you will see the old hag first. That's the thing about assignments. Our students don't always see things the way we expect them to see them. And if we really create creative assignments, there's going to be more than one right answer. The old hag is right, the young lady is right. And our ability for our eyes and brains to go back and forth between the two is also how we want to unsettle our students to get them to realize, oh, I don't have such a handle on things. Maybe there's more to it than I thought. This is the site that you can find this on. So I always tell my art students there's a difference between looking and seeing. Look up there in the sky. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman. Looking versus seeing. So what do you see? A skull. Some of you are going to see the skull first, but really this is a woman sitting in front of her vanity, seeing her reflection into a mirror. The nose is created by a gap in the blinds or drapes, and this is the cross line of the window. Once again, there's more to our assignments than meets the eye. So now you have to check your perspective. Take a look at this for a while. Well, that's just it. If you've ever had vertigo, this is not what you want to be looking at for any length of time. But this is a work by Bridget Riley. It is absolutely, positively flat. It is a two-dimensional surface. Just with a few lines, she has changed our perspective. I've always thought that the most provocative art should always be opposite the toilet so that you have a captive audience. I don't understand why art departments don't put art inside toilet stalls. It'd be great exposure. But here, you're unsettled, and that's good. And just imagine if you tiled your floor like this and you had dogs or cats, the poor things. So I want you to get the big picture. So what do you see? I'm wondering, can we close the door over there so that we can get this side darker? The door, and it's hinged. You have to unlatch it on the bottom. Oh, okay, good. Yes, that makes a difference. So the big picture is this older woman, this older man, in between them, this chalice. But they're made up of a younger woman and a younger man, this bottle, her earring, this young señorita in the doorway. So what is this picture all about? Behind this old woman, really, is she still young at heart? Is he still young at heart? Do we look at the whole picture, or do we look at the parts that make up the picture? Once again, this is great for a psych class. This is about the psychology. It's about art. It's about perception. I want you all to have fun with this and realize that there's more than one way to look at any discipline and any particular assignment. So I have a variety of assignments: embedded lecture questions, discussion board topics, papers or projects. And I use all of them to ensure authenticity. Every student has his or her own voice. And by sprinkling all of these in my classes, I know that voice. And I don't have to worry, is that really Joe or Julie's paper? I know it's them, and I know when it's not them. Yep. The question was, how do I do the embedded lecture questions? I'm repeating this for the CC Confer Live people. I put them in the PowerPoint lectures. So I have a topic and then I ask them a question. And at the end of their lecture, they have to submit into Blackboard the answers to those questions. I then read all of their answers. Yes, you heard right, read all of those answers. I have an answer key for every chapter, so that if their answer falls within the parameters of what I think is a good answer, they get a smiley face. If their answer does not meet my standard, then the answer key that I send them gives them my ideal answer as well as a series of student answers that, while slightly different from mine, also hit the target. And it varies from lesson to lesson. Some have 3 questions, some have 6 questions. This is not non-labor intensive. This is very labor intensive. No, it's not self-grading. Yeah, my students get their, as soon as they submit the questions, I try to get them back. Typically, they get everything back between 24 and 48 hours after. Well, this way, I know that they've read the lecture. When I teach on campus, I have this glazed over audience, and I know they're there in body, but I don't know that they're there in mind. The happy faces means, yes, they got that right. The comment C key either means that they didn't get any or they got some credit. And so they know when they read what they've written and then they read all the different options of what is a good answer, I typically don't get comments, but I did it. They'll see there's what they wrote did not come up to what I wanted. The embedded lecture questions are in their lectures. They then have, there's a separate column, their assignments, and that's when the assignments come and they have the chapter or the lesson questions, and that's where they submit it. And no, these are my online students. They're doing it online while they're doing, but then you see, okay, but I teach the class face-to-face as well. And so for my face-to-face, all of the questions appear in their chapter learning module. And so they're instructed that they need to have done their reading before coming to class every week, so that when I get to the question in the face-to-face class, they can participate. And if they don't participate, I tell them, I'm not going over an answer, but guess what? There are questions on your chapter test that reflect this. So while you didn't do the work when you needed to, you better do it between now and Saturday when the test is due, because you won't necessarily know the answers. So I'm very much into accountability and making the students responsible for their own destiny. If they put in the work and participate, they're going to do very well. If they don't participate, I also remind them that every time they forget to do some work, they have effectively given themselves a 0. So I get my inspiration from my passions, which are food and art, and from offbeat things I hear on National Public Radio. So I take an interdisciplinary approach. My education is interdisciplinary. What I teach is interdisciplinary, and it's very important for me that my students understand how interconnected everything is. I want my students to realize that their work, that these disciplines don't just live on the pages of their text, but actually in the real world that they occupy. And so I try to create assignments that have real-world applications. And granted, anthropology, sociology, and art are very interdisciplinary, but I'm going to show you that even if you don't teach those things, you can come up with some really screwball crazy things. So I've listed some disciplines here, chemistry, biology. I don't have to read them all to you. If I have missed any of your disciplines, I am very sorry. Do all of you teach one of these? Who did I miss? Okay, well, I'll put that in math. Yeah. Even though I'm missing a math gene, I do have math suggestions for you. Child development, psychology, sociology, we'll find something there. So hobbies, I put, of course, food and art first. Some of you travel, some garden, skiing, hiking, music, motorcycling, movies, video gaming. These are just a few. You're only limited by your interests. So maybe some of these are your hobbies as well. So I use these to ensure that they've read the text, and we've already talked about that. I also have an online reader, and those questions bring them to those articles as well, because some of them will just read the textbook and won't read the articles. I'm sneaky. Some questions are fact-based, but others apply the concepts that I present. And some of the questions are designed to have students personalize these concepts. So I'll ask this oddball question: have you ever been given the Romeo and Juliet ultimatum? Now, all of us have either read Romeo and Juliet or seen one of the three versions of the movie of Romeo and Juliet, and we know about the Capulets and the Montagues. Well, in anthropology, I talk about endogamy and exogamy in selecting marriage partners. So I want my students to tell me, have their parents put any restrictions on them? Have they been told, you can't marry someone like that, whatever the like that may be? So I call it the Romeo and Juliet ultimatum. And so they suddenly have to talk to their parents if they haven't even thought of the idea of marriage, and really think about how endogamy and exogamy affect them. But it sounds so much better than, do you practice endogamy or do you practice exogamy? Somehow those two almost sound like dirty words. I don't know. I use open-ended discussions, topics that have real-world scenarios, and I also want them to personalize these. I also often state that they cannot repeat the idea of someone else. That way they're forced to make it their own. And it's a great place for either interactive gaming or controversial issues. So I'll ask them, what invention or innovation would you give back? Because I talk a lot about modernization and globalization and the issues of progress and change. And I'll ask you, how many of you have microwaves? So most of you have microwaves. What do you think about microwaves? You love it, convenient. I have one too. I understand that. However, I tell them they're a disaster. They're horrible. And they're not horrible from the cooking point of view, which is my foodie side, but they have single-handedly destroyed the family dinner. Because now you come home and there you open the refrigerator and there everyone's little plate is there with a little note, Jimmy's at soccer, Mary's at ballet, nuke it. We have lost the concept of family dinner because of the microwave. And so I want them to start thinking about what they would give back. And you'd be amazed how many would actually give back their cell phones. I'm repeating for the online that students did an experiment of watering plants, and the plants that were watered with microwaved water died. Frightening. Oh, yeah, I think it's fabulous. We used to raise dairy goats, and my daughter decided to check Miracle-Gro for a science project. Miracle-Gro, Flintstone vitamins, nothing, and goat poop. And goat poop won. So let's hear it for organic fertilizers. I'm going to get you to an internet. I will get you to that very quickly. So then there are papers and projects, and this is where you really can have fun and run amok. But the result is that your students are going to have a good time, they're going to learn a lot, and you're going to have a lot of fun grading. So let's get to some resources. I have a lot of resources here. I probably won't get through all of them, but I'm happy to either send you the presentation so you don't have to be typing fast and furiously, and then you'll have them all hyperlinked and you can click to your heart's desire. So, you know, as I say, everything's integrated. I think of my art history and my anthropology as living organisms, and they're constantly changing, and they're affected by political, social, religious, economic, aesthetic, and technical issues. So I can bring in computers, or I can bring in physics, or I can bring in child-rearing issues. And nothing happens in a vacuum. So some of the sites I'm going to show you I use all the time. Others I hunted down just for this purpose. So let me, I'm just repeating that about what I've done. Remember, the Internet's a really big place. We don't all have time to explore it from start to finish. This is just a taste or a poo-poo platter, to keep it in food terms. And at the end, I hope that you'll be willing to share with us some of your sites that you found. Jill already sent me one called Smart History, really fun. The sites that I have with asterisks are the ones we're going to visit together, but once again, I may be in a time crunch, and it looks like I already am in a time crunch almost. So anthropology, how many anthropologists do I have here? Anybody? Because what I'll do is, in order to make this really apply to you more, I'll skip over if there's no discipline here. Does that work for all of you? So no anthropologists, so we won't be visiting these particularly. I really like these sites. The thing is, if any of you teach biology, nobody teaches biology, well, then you could use those too. English takers? Yes. Oh, okay. I hadn't planned on visiting this site, but we can open it up. I have one assignment where students have to create, my anthro students, a myth, ritual, or taboo. But before they do that, they have to create a culture that makes anthropologic logic as well as real-world logic. So if they've cited the culture in Antarctica, they can't have a taboo on clothing. It just doesn't work. You're not in frigid and you're naked. Doesn't happen. Also, you can't have book-burning rituals if you've told me that you don't have a literate society. They don't have books in the first place. So it has to work. And this site not only introduces students to myths, you get myths from all over the place, but it has a mechanism to show students how to write myths. So it's very effective. Also, this site out of England has lots of games and activities for English students at various levels. And so even if you have ESL students, some of you may have ESL students, you could use those. If you've got more advanced students, they've got more advanced activities on this site. So dangling prepositions to use the subjunctive or not, that is the question. Remember that you don't have to scribble. I will send this PowerPoint to you. Do I have any art teachers? Yay! Paisan. Okay. I love this site. If you teach art, psychology, business, econ, physics, biology, you can use it. This is called Art Matters. And hopefully the site will open. Okay. Color Matters. This is Color Matters. There are a series of topics here. Symbolism and emotion, effects on the body, effects on vision, design, business and marketing. Computers. My computer guy? We're going there. So, now you've got, for technology, a series of articles. Computer Color Matters, you're computer colorblind, what is gamma, tips for Windows, as well as color on the web. So here you've got these articles about color. And obviously you're not going to read them all right now. But when I teach my color lesson, students typically, I've gone through the color wheel of complementary colors, monochromatic colors, primary colors, secondary colors, all of this, and now they see it with real-world applications. And a lot of students like to do color in the body. This is where I get food back in, because in nature, there are very few blue food items. The only thing that most of us think of are blueberries, and really they're a value of purple, but we'll not cheat on that one. And that's because in nature, blue food is poisonous. So from an evolutionary point of view, we have been conditioned to stay away from blue food. So when I see a birthday cake at Ralph's that's blue, I just don't get it. But for those of us who do not want to spend money at Jenny Craig, the solution is put a blue light bulb in the refrigerator and serve food off of blue plates. When you open the door, everything's going to have this bluish color. It isn't going to look good. And on a blue plate, it also will not look good because we eat with our eyes first. And the blue is going to affect this. I use this site when I talk about issues of gender in my anthro class. Because when you bring home your baby from the hospital, what color is it in? What do you dress your baby in? Blue or pink? Yes, for those who are undecided, we go yellow. But we put them in blue or pink. And the hospital gives you a blue beanie or a pink beanie. Remember, your sex is biological, your gender is cultural. So maybe that kid might have supposed to come home in a purple beanie, but we won't know that yet. But historically, little boys were put in pink and little girls were put in blue. So you'll get that on that site. You can read about that. In an English class, you have to write different kinds of essays, a descriptive essay, a argument, and all of this. And half the time, students don't know what to write about. Give them a site like this, they'll have plenty to write about. I then end this lesson with a survey I give my students, I ask them to associate colors with emotions and issues. What's the color of expensive? What's the color of taste good? What's the color of royalty? What's the color of mourning? What's the color of happiness? And then I ask them, what have they learned about color? And at the end, what I'm hoping for them to say is that they've discovered that color is cultural. In the U.S., people wear black for mourning. In Asia, they wear white. Orthodox Jews wear white. In royalty. If you're Chinese, the color will be yellow. If you're English, it'll be purple. So I want them to see that. I want them to understand that their color choices are media-driven. Think about the colors that McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King use. Red, white, and yellow with a little blue. There's method to the madness. As much as blue curbs your appetite, red stimulates your appetite. So this is a really fun site. And from a computer perspective, one of the big things for teaching art is the fact that when students go online to Google Images, I'm sure you've discovered that what they pick for their image, the color values are wrong. And so you have to be very aware of the kind of color that the computers are using. Okay, this is another great site that lets you paint like an artist. So this one has, Mr. Picasso had. So you can paint like Picasso. So once again, if you have to write a paper, have them first do this and then explain their process, because sometimes you have a procedural paper to write. So let's click on here. Let's see if it'll work. It doesn't like me today. I get to drag, sorry. So now I need ears. And I'll get some lips. And eyes. Just so I'm fooling around with this, but you can fool around. It helps because my students look at Picasso and go, "What the heck was he on?" And so I say, "Well, let's see what you're on." Yeah, you can save. Yeah, they can send them and save them. Yeah. I also happen to like this one. My students never get Jackson Pollock. So we're waiting for it to come in. And I'm just not, you get the idea. You guys can play around with these at home. Once again, how do you know when it's done? How did Jackson Pollock know when to stop? Your students have to create something and then stop. This site gives you some more interactive. Keith Haring site has lots of activities to do as well. This is a great site for teaching culture as well as art. It takes you to Africa and shows you the different stages of life and objects and art associated with it. So I use this stuff. Do I have political science and history here? Okay. This is my favorite. I use this all the time because I teach politics and violence. And this is a gaming site. And this is one, but this can be used by any discipline. So I think we should create a nation together. So we're going to create a nation. Are we a republic, kingdom, empire, sultanate? Should we try being a sultanate today? And what is the name of our country? Anything. I-M-E-R. Okay. And our national flag. My students have figured out a way actually of designing their own flag. But I'll just try this one, hem. Now, are we a plucky, malnourished pioneers, plucky Are we recently discovered, undiscovered tribe, sackers and salvagers? Okay, you like that one. Okay. And are we liberal, conservative, passionate, oppressive, corrupt, libertarian, or psychotic? I think we'll be psychotic. Okay, and what is the name of our currency? Imerian. And what is the national animal? What? Unicorn? Okay. And what is the national motto? Plunder and kill. Okay. Kill. Crush the wheat. Okay, now. Oh, the wheat. Right, I'm back into food. I'm crunching wheat. Okay. Now, I'm not going to put in an email in this case, but you will put in your email so that the site can contact you because you're going to start legislating. And, so password so that you guys can go in afterwards, write down what you are. Oh, no, and and the thing is that once you become a nation, my students have to demonstrate 5 days of legislative activity to get their points. And they get sent things about, do you want to legalize this? Do you want to do this? They're really... No, the question for Confer is, do students work on this as a group or individually? I have my students work individually. I am not a proponent of group work. I don't want the weak carried by the strong. Right, I don't want to see that. So they have to do this on their own, and they have a grand time, and a lot of them stay in this long after the lesson is over. Oh, they have to make all these choices. So the password is IMER, all lowercase. Oh, I guess we can't be IMER because somebody else has it. I know. Well, plunder, pillage. Yeah, we have to take it from them. I'm not going to take the time right now, but you get the idea. Remember, you'll get this link and you can play with this on your own. I'm always amused at my students who become despotic or psychotic rulers. It's absolutely marvelous. They submit to me, when you create your nation, at the bottom is the nation's URL. And they send me an active hyperlinked URL for their nation. And I use this within the embedded lecture questions. They have to do it in there, but it is also part of their discussion board for my online as well as my on-campus class. So in the discussion board, they post the hyperlinked URL, and then the rest of the class goes and looks at everybody's country. And in my discussion board, I say that they have, in order to get full credit, they have to talk to 3 people. They have to create an initial introductory thread or an original thread. They have to comment on the work of at minimum 3 other students, and they have to respond to every student who has commented on their thread. And so then they read, and students, and I also have this other thing in the discussion board that no student should have more than 3 or 4 people, because typically the first student who gets in gets inundated with everything, and that's not fair. Where's my, okay, let's see. I'm going, so I think I'm in the wrong. Nope. That didn't work. What? Okay. So, back to that. This site is interesting. It shows students how to use historical fragments. This is a very detailed resource site. This is also a great site for teaching art, gender studies, business marketing, science, and psychology. As I say, I'm running out of time, so I need to really get through some of this stuff. More poli-sci. I'm big into semiotics. I use semiotics a lot in my art class, and so creating a t-shirt for a new political party using semiotics. And these sites explain semiotics so that, once again, you can use these in lots of different disciplines, whether it's history or English, political science. Go back to portfolios. This is another site that can be used for sociology as well as history and political science. I have my students design coins using iconography and commentary, and I use the U.S. quarter system as their model for how to do that. We all have seen the U.S. quarters. So I'm trying to get through a lot of this. I'm big on art versus vandalism because I'm very interested in graffiti as well. And so these sites are excellent. Once again, a great way to talk about what graffiti is all about on the psychological level, on the social level, on the political level. Oh, it's culture. And do I have any physics people? No? Okay, this is a great site. This is physics and cooking because I don't understand physics, but I sure understand cooking. So here, conduction, convection, cooking with radiation. It explains everything and is a wonderful site. Why do I have these problems? Okay. Physics and cooking a turkey, fun site. Who would have thought that there was physics in Turkey? Wonderful site on molecular gastronomy because of my chemistry and food. Here, this is a great site if you want to create an assignment on Newton's laws of motion. You can have them design a skateboard. This works for math, too. More biochemistry. Top chefs demonstrated biochemical processes through cooking. This is a 15-minute YouTube. We have no time. But your students could create their own experiments to do this. Psychology. These are all sites on portraiture. I spend a lot of time talking about portraiture and identity. And portraiture isn't just a sense of vanity. Portraiture is also an act of defiance. So you can get into the politics of portraiture as well. Philosophy. Or religion. Do I have any philosophy, religion people here? The Rothko Chapel is a great site. This is a meditation chapel. designed by Mark Roscoe, and I ask my students if this is the direction religion should be going into, because it is an interfaith chapel. And you should hear the discussion board on that one. I'll get emails, you gave me a run for my money this week. I say, good. That's what learning is all about. Once again, religion and food. Food never leaves me. These are all about dietary laws. And then go read about Marvin Harris, who's a cultural materialist. And instead of explaining why this food is banned and that food is banned from a religious perspective, look at it from the perspective of the cultural materialist. Math. As I said, I don't have a math gene, but I love M.C. Escher. And these are examples of Escher and hyperbolic geometry, Escher and non-Euclidean geometry. Believe me, you'll find a discussion board here without a problem. Also, this is a wonderful YouTube that teaches you how to have students create tessellations. Tessellations are the use of rhomboids and parallelograms with no space in between, so you see one image going one way and another image going another. You have to understand math to do it. And the students do these, and while they may go nuts doing it, they have a good time. Also, talk about Fibonacci numbers and golden ratios in math. That's the art side. So optical illusions, lots of optical illusions. You can write English papers, math papers, psychology papers, all on optical illusions. So here's my great topic. Holy shit, there's gold and then there are copper lights. These are two fabulous articles that this is all about a jumping off point, giving students an idea of something to do, giving you an idea. The first MIT students won $100,000 for this innovative business prize. They created a new type of toilet for Kenya. And this other one is about a composting toilet that needs no water and creates organic fertilizer. And this is being done in Haiti. They use the porta potties. The potties are set up for the urine and the feces. They throw in sugarcane debris from the rum plants. Everything percolates. In the end, the heat created by composting kills the E. coli and all the other nasty cooties. And in the end, you are left with organic material that is rich and excellent for crops. And, someone said it makes an excellent rum cake. His name will be anonymous. Right. When I send you this, you'll have these auto-tune. Get your students to auto-tune the news. These are hysterical. You'll see racism talked about. Nancy Pelosi on the floor of the Congress. The news is auto-tuned. This is a great project for students to do. They can use this as the model. This is a wonderful site for problem solving. What about oh my God moments? This is a great article that ties IBM to Nazi tattoo numbers. Who would have thunk? Or do you know who the inventor of frequency hopping is? Hedy Lamarr. And the inventor of the artificial heart is not Dr. Jarvik. It's Walter Winchell, the dummy guy. He was working with Heimlich. But you need to have these oddball things. Snafus. Have your students write about companies that went wrong. Nothing like Gerber getting it wrong. Or Nestle. And Nestle got it wrong 2 times. In the case of Gerber, they were promoting their baby food in Africa. In particular, Kenya, most of the people are illiterate, and so you typically have pictures on the label to tell you what's inside. What's on the label of Gerber products? The people thought they were chopped up babies. So as I say, there's lots here. English people, you need this site. It's Shakespeare to Rap. Have your students do Shakespeare and rap using this as the model. So I hope I fueled your creativity. Don't be afraid to think out of the box. Your passions and hobbies are you at your most creative. To paraphrase Andrew Zimmern, who says, if it looks strange, eat it. I say, if it sounds odd, use it. So if you hear or read something and you go, whoa, use it as the basis for an assignment. The end. And I'll make sure that I post this in the discussion board. I'll put it as an attachment since I could send it to CC Confer. I know it's the right size for you all to get it, and then you can play to your heart's content.